So now let's move on to Seaborn. And Seaborn is another data visualization library in Python. So here in this cell, I imported pandas as PD, matplotlib as PLT, and the reason why I imported matplotlib because it works hand in hand with Seaborn, and I want to use it to create some labels, axes, and so on. And here I imported Seaborn as SNS, and I stored our CSV into a data frame. So let's run that cell, and you see we get our data frame. So first let's create a bar plot. So to do that, we put sns.barplot, and then we, in brackets, we set our x to equals, we want our region column, and set the y to equals our population column. And let's run that. And you see we created our bar plot. If we want to remove this confidence interval or error bars, we set the error bar argument to none. Now let's run that. It's error bar with a no S. Let's run that. And remember in matplotlib, to remove this, we had to put plt.show. But with Seaborn, we could just add a semicolon and run this. And you see it was removed. If we want to change this to a horizontal plot, we simply change the x and the y. So instead of x here, we put y. Instead of y here, we put x. And we change that to a horizontal. Let me put it back because I don't like it. And we can change the estimator to sum since it brings the mean by default. So to do that, estimator equals sum. Let's run that. And it brings up the sum of all the regions. We can use the hue argument for color coding, and it brings up a legend. So let's set hue equals to, and we're gonna set it to region. Let's run that. Oh, I forgot our data frame. Let me just put this in here and run that. And you see we got our hue. But what that does is that it shifted our bars. To prevent this from happening, we can use the dodge argument and set that to false. And let's run that. And you see we got it back how we wanted it. Now let's move on to count plots. And the count plot is basically like a bar plot except for the aggregation. It just counts each observation, and we just need to pass in an x or y value. So let's create a count plot, sns.countplot, and in bracket, we just pass the x value, region. And let's run that. Let me add this here to remove. And you see we got a count plot. And the reason why we imported matplotlib, so if we want to edit labels and titles. So I'm not going to explain this because I explained it in matplotlib in the previous videos. So let's set the fig to equals plt.figure to set the fig size to 10 by 4. Set the axis equal fig.add. Now let's set the labels for x and y. So x.set underscore x label, and we want to call it subregion. X.set underscore y label, and I want to call it count. Let's set the title. I'm just going to call it count region. Then I'm gonna cut this, paste it here, and set the axis equals to the ax variable that we created. And let's run that. Now it's one title and T. And you see we created our labels, titles, and we resized our count plot. We can change the size to title by just adding the size argument and set that equals to, let's say 15. Let me put 20 so we can see the difference. And you see we got that bigger. And then we could do the same for the X and Y labels. Whoops. Let's run that. And you see we resized the X and Y labels. Now let's move on to box plots. And before we do that, we're gonna load another data frame. I'm gonna call it players data frame. It goes to pd.read_CSV. The name of our CSV file is players.csv. And then remember this CSV file, it has a lot of columns, and by default, Pandas doesn't show all the columns. So we have to set the pd.set option. And we want to display .max_columns. And then the next argument we set is false. And now let's look at our data frame. Oh, here it's PD, not PF. And you see all the columns is displayed. And what we want is the overall column, the same column as the previous videos. Just know that there's an overall column here somewhere. I found it in the previous video, but it's here. So to shorten this video, I'm just gonna continue. So let's make a box plot of the overall score. So sns.boxplot, set our X to our PDF data frame, and we want the overall column. And let's run that. Let's add this here. And you see we got a box plot of our overall column. We can switch the vertical display. We just need to put Y here instead of X. And you see that changed the vertical display. If we want to remove the outliers, we set the flyers argument or flyer size argument, and we set that to 0. Let's run, and you see it, we remove the outliers. If we want to create a 2D box plot, we can set a X and Y argument. So let me just put this here. And then I'm gonna set Y equals to PDF. And I'm gonna choose the league name column. And let's run that. Oh, we need to put a comma here. Let's run that. Let me switch our X and Y. Instead of this league name column, let me just find another column so this looks better. I'm gonna put a real name. Let's run that. Oh, the name of the column is real face, not real name. And here you have our 2D box plot in Seaborn. If we wanted to rotate the axis, we put plt.xticks, and in bracket we use the rotation equals 45. Let's run that. And you see our x-axis, it was rotated. So this is categorical plots in Seaborn.